Okay, so the next step in the process, once we have a fairly clear idea of the type of person that we want to work with, or have work for us, or collaborate as part of our team, the next thing we need to really start to do is to define, well, what is the exact role that we're asking them to move into? Now, obviously, we had something in mind when we started the recruitment process. We understood that we needed somebody, and we had a general idea of what we wanted them to do, but we can't really hire people based on a general idea. We don't know how to pay them, we don't know how to do those sort of things, and we need to get a little bit more specific about that. So what that's going to turn into is a conversation about role definition. And the first part of that is to make sure that we've done our analysis. Okay, so we do the job analysis first. And when we're looking at the job analysis, we're looking at making sure that we've got a couple of clear things. The first thing we want to do is make sure that the job is understood. Okay, so what we're talking about there is that the job objective. What does it do? Okay, so we're talking about the objective. Okay, what is the point of the job? What is it there to achieve? How is it supposed to be helping us? What do we want it to do? What's the product we want it to produce? Okay, so how does it fit within the organisation? The next thing is that we need to make sure that we've got a really clear statement on the purpose. Okay, we know what we want it to do, and that's what we've covered here. We know what we want. The question here is, well, why? Okay, so what's the purpose and outcomes? Okay, how does it fit in? What do we want it to produce, and why does it do that? Who does it help in the organisation? What does it allow us to do? What's the point? Okay, so we've got the objective, we've now got a purpose and outcome. We know where that's going there. Okay, then we start to think about, well, what are the tasks involved? Okay, so what are the tasks involved in doing that? If we know what we want them to do, what sub-steps are they going to do to make that happen? So what we need to do is make sure that each task and component of their job is clearly identified. So we know how it's all going to fit together and what they're really going to do on the ground. Because once we know what tasks there are, then we need to start thinking about what skills we need to make sure the task is done. I might be asking for someone to come and be a kitchen hand, but if actually being a kitchen hand means they need to do a whole bunch of other stuff, cash handling, stock ordering, all that sort of stuff, then obviously that's going to be very different in a different place. So we need to make sure we fully understand what's happening with this. And the other thing is we need to start thinking about, well, now I know what it does, I know where it does and what it's going to help us is, I need to think about, well, what's the relationships? Okay, and what we're talking about there is, well, who do they report to? Who do they work with? Who do they communicate with on a daily basis? Okay, where do they fit in on the social picture of my organisation? Okay, so I've got a structure, or it could be a very flat structure. Do they report to someone? Do they have people reporting to them? Who do they deal with? Okay, so how's that going to fit? And also, how does it work with other jobs? As I said, if it's a kitchen hand, are they preparing stuff for the chef? Are they preparing stuff for someone else? How does all this fit together, and who else are they going to network with while they're at the business? And then we also need to think about any essential requirements. Okay, and what we're talking about there is essential requirements that they have to have in order to do the job. So if you're going to be a taxi driver, clearly you need a driver's license. If you are working with food, you might need food handling certifications. If you're working with children, you'll need your Children Act. If you're going to be a doctor, you need your degree, etc. So there's a whole lot of things that the government says you must have, or professional organisations say that you must have. And that's the first thing we need to start thinking about for the job analysis. All right, excellent. So just to recap, job analysis is an investigation into the tasks that relate to the job. Within the job, breaking it down, getting a really clear idea of what the various component parts are, and making sure that it's identified, understood, and we're making sure that we've got some clear documentation, all right? So this all has to be documented. Okay, because we're going to come back to this later when we start moving on to the later parts about advertising for this job, all right, because that's going to form part of our copy. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to study the job. We're really going to determine what responsibilities are there. We're going to start thinking about who they work with, what are the conditions, and we're going to start to make sure that we understand all the bits and pieces that are going to go into that the person can then deliver a fairly satisfactory outcome. Okay, so we clarify all that, we put it all together, and as I say, clearly documented, because later on when we start to run advertisements or start looking for the person, all this stuff's really going to feature heavily, and we need to be able to make sure they know what's going on. Cool.